So what is the Iron Rock Offroad Almost Alloy Kit? Well, it's their answer to one of the most common causes of front axle failure. That's when the bearing caps on a U-joint back out of the ears of the shaft, and then the U-joint, as it whips around, just completely destroys the ears of that stub shaft. That's what happened to me here on the hole in the rock. Now this axle would have otherwise been viable, except that stupid U-joint completely destroyed it. So a solution that's been around a long time to this is to just put a little spot weld on the bearing cap to hold it in place. The problem is, under heavy wheeling, these welds will oftentimes just snap and the bearing cap will still back out and you'll still end up destroying an axle. So Iron Rock Offroad's solution was to come up with these tabs that you weld in place that absolutely lock the bearing caps in place, but also strengthen the ears on the axle shaft. So let me show you how we're going to install these. We're going to start by removing the axle shafts. I like to remove the hub and unit bearing and axle together as an assembly. I just find it's easier if I just remove the three bolts that hold the unit bearing on. They're 13 millimeter 12 point, and there's 3 on each side. If your axle's corroded, you may need to persuade them out. I just put a socket on a socket extension and use that to tap them out. That way I don't destroy the end of that bolt. Now, Project Overlander happened to have anti-lock brakes. If you have anti-lock brakes, you're going to have this tone ring on the stub shaft. Well, it will not clear these tabs, so you're going to have to clearance that tone ring. I am not sure whether or not your anti-lock braking sensors will continue to work when you clearance that. I'm replacing the rear axle in Project Overlander with a Ford 8.8, so I'm not going to be able to reuse my anti-lock brake system anyways. So I've just notched mine with a die grinder. I hit them with a cold chisel, and I'm completely removing the tone rings. I'm not going to be able to use the anti-lock brake system. So with that gone, remove the old U-joints, and then I'm using a Dremel to clean the metal up here. I've got to have nice clean metal to get a good clean weld. I'm being careful not to remove any more material than absolutely necessary. I don't want to weaken the ears of those shafts. That's why I'm not using a flapper wheel. Now, if you're going to do this kit, go to the expense of replacing your U-joints. You're not going to be able to replace them again very easily. So get you a new U-joint and make sure that it's greasable. When you weld this, you're going to heat the grease up in that U-joint. You're going to want to be able to service it down the road. Now take some electrical tape and just tape down 2 of the bearing caps. As you're welding, the grease in this U-joint's going to heat up. You don't want those bearing caps to slip off and hit the floor and send the roller bearings flying all over the place and then ruin your brand new U-joint. So I'm going to go ahead and just tack on these flanges. Once I've got them tacked, I'll go ahead and weld them down. Just weld them on each side of the bearing cap. You don't need to go all the way around. Eventually you're going to have to replace this U-joint. You don't want to have to grind away any more weld than absolutely necessary. Now once you've got the flanges on one side, go ahead and install the main axle shaft, and then repeat the process, welding the 2 flanges on the main axle shaft. Now do a quick test to make sure that you have a proper clearance, that the U-joint can do a full range of motion. If you need to clearance these tabs a little bit by grinding them down, you can do that. Grind as little as necessary. The last step is to install your grease fitting. And then if you've boiled the grease out of the U-joint while you were welding, you probably put too much heat in it. But if you did that, make sure you re-grease it and then go ahead and reinstall your axle shafts in the housing. Now, for 30 bucks, this is really cheap insurance and can give you a lot of peace of mind on the trail. It increases the strength of the ear, as well as permanently eliminates the problem of those bearing caps coming out. Makes it impossible for them to back out. So I think it's a great deal and a really inexpensive product that can give you a lot of peace of mind. Well, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you next time.